These are the funniest fights of Peter Griffin, starting with the episode Trump Guy, where Peter shocked the US by fighting President Trump. This story began in the previous episode, Hefty Shades of Grey, when Peter Griffin became an influential newsman and was hired by the government.
Dad's working for the Trump White House?
And now, Peter and his family arrived in Washington and he started his new job. His main duty was to check the rooms before Trump entered and make sure there was no static electricity. Wouldn't it be better to check for shooters? It seemed simple, and Peter was excited about his new career opportunities. However, working for Trump turned out to be much harder than he expected. The problem started when Peter and his family were invited to a party at the White House. Everything was going well until Meg and Trump were alone, and Donald crossed the line.
Oh my God!
Trump tried to justify his behavior, but the worst part of this situation was that her family didn't believe her.
Meg, you expect us to believe that the President of the United States would grab a woman by her That's ridiculous!
The lack of reaction to the incident only made the situation worse. While Peter was busy at work, Donald Trump made another move on Meg.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the?
But this time, the whole family was there to witness it.
Oh my God!
Now they believed Meg, and the relationship between Peter and Trump was ruined.
Are we square?
No. No, President Trump, we are not. I quit.
Peter was furious about Trump's behavior, and later that day he went back and confronted him again. He accused him of being a bad person, a useless president, and a fake billionaire.
You're cash poor.
Say that again. I dare you.
You are cash poor.
Looks like we found his weak spot. Angry, Trump attacked Peter and they started fighting while everybody around was watching.
Peter, catch! Kill him in front of me and I sex you.
Only God knows how the creators of Family Guy avoided lawsuits. During the fight, they crashed into the White House and kept fighting in the Oval Office. Yes, this is exactly how the American presidency works. Then their fight went through a press conference and continued in a pool near the Washington Monument. But this wasn't the end of the fight. It took them to the Air and Space Museum, where they took the fight to another level.
I got a sillier plane.
Trying to kill each other, they crashed the planes and fell on the Washington Memorial. Peter and Trump were about to fall to their deaths, but at the last moment, they were saved by Justin Trudeau.
I was just kayaking past and it looked like you guys could use some help.
Remember that time when we saw Justin Trudeau as a savior and not an embarrassment? Peter and Donald decided that enough was enough and stopped fighting. Satisfied with his intervention, Justin Trudeau stood up on 2 Canadian geese and flew away into the sunset. Most logical ending for this fight. This chaotic episode took Peter from a simple White House job to an all-out brawl with the President of the United States. The scandal like this would spark investigations, media outrage, and political fallout, rather than a fistfight across Washington, D.C. If there's a lesson to learn, it's that power doesn't make someone untouchable. But in the next episode, Petey IV, Peter went even further and challenged Russian President Putin. This plan almost led to an international scandal and put Peter's life in more danger than ever before. The long road to the fight with Putin started with a tradition between Joe, Peter, Quagmire, and Cleveland. Every year, on Dolph Lundgren's birthday, they got together to rewatch Rocky IV. Don't watch it, guys. It's trash. But this year, there was a problem. The disc didn't work. So, they went to the store to buy a new one, but there was only one weird edition left.
Rocky IV! Ah, nuts. This one's written in terrorism.
That's Cyrillic. It's a Russian.
The new suspicious disc brought them a big disappointment. In the Russian version of the movie, Ivan Drago was winning. This made Peter furious, and he decided to write an angry letter to Vladimir Putin.
Everyone knows that any American can beat up any Russian on any day of the week.
Unfortunately for Peter, the Russian president got the letter and arrived at the Griffin's house with a response. Only Peter's letter could force the guy to leave his bunker. Using his bodyguards, Putin beat up Peter.
Ah, pretty quick, huh? Well, how about this? Here comes the haymaker! You had enough?
There you go.
Later that day, Peter met Putin again in the bar. They started chatting, and after a walk around Quahog, they even became friends.
Well, you're my friend now. Funny how this worked out. Who would have thought, huh?
I guess things not always what they seem.
Having made a new friend, Putin decided to invite him to visit Russia, and Peter agreed. But when they got there, Peter was shocked by how things were going and how deeply Russia had intervened in American life.
Is where we rig every American election.
Eh.
Also, American football.
What? No!
Furious by what he had seen, Peter Griffin challenged the Russian president again, this time to an honest boxing match.
It's time someone stood up to you and survived.
The boxing match took place in Moscow. Peter and Putin both represented their countries recreating Rocky.
President Vladimir Putin. Fighting for America, Kevin James.
Everybody here thinks I'm Kevin James.
Imagine a king who fights his own battles. Wouldn't that be a sight?
During the long and ferocious fight, neither side could gain the upper hand, so they agreed to a draw. This was the end of the fight, but Peter didn't know that Putin had prepared the ultimate ending for him.
The next day, he poisoned me on the limo ride to the airport with radioactive tea.
This is why Russian hospitality always comes with a disclaimer. In this episode, Peter set out to prove America's strength, but ended up getting a taste of Russian diplomacy. Literally. If a world leader offers you tea, maybe stick to bottled water. The real-life challenge of a dictator because of your temper would have led to far more serious consequences than just a poisoned drink. But how can you keep things under control when Peter meets his equal? In the episode The Simpsons Guy, Peter Griffin meets Homer Simpson, and it all leads to one of the most epic battles. The long road to the fight began when Peter became disappointed with the comics in the local newspaper.
I could do better than these idiots.
Unexpectedly, he published a few successful comics and became somewhat famous in Quahog. But then, he took a wrong turn and drew a pair of very sexist comics. This made the women of Quahog furious, and they began to chase and threaten him. When angry protesters surrounded Griffin's house, the family didn't feel safe anymore, so they decided to take action.
Maybe we should get out of Quahog for a while.
Peter and his family set off on their journey, but at a gas station, their car was stolen. They walked to the nearest city on foot. Tired and hungry, they went to a store to get food, but it turned out that all their money was left in the stolen car. Luckily for them, there was a good and generous stranger.
I'll pay for their donuts.
Their new friend invited them to his home where they could stay until things got better. He also helped Peter find his car. Grateful, Peter decided to greet Homer with beer from Quahog.
Always keep an emergency six-pack in my trunk.
But it turned out that Peter's beer Pawtucket Patriot is fake, and it's actually a local Duff beer with a re-stickered label.
Look at this. Huh?
It is Duff.
This became a reason for conflict between Peter and Homer. The guys are defending their most sacred treasure. To settle the confrontation, they went to court, where Peter lost the case. Now, Pawtucket Patriot was going to close, and Peter lost his job.
Aww.
During the farewell, Peter and Homer, overcome with emotion, were unable to forgive each other, began arguing, and then started a fight.
I've seen this one. This is a classic.
Their wild fight took them onto a bus, which then crashed into the local nuclear power plant. Radioactive danger didn't stop Peter and Homer from fighting. They kept going and caused an accident. After falling into radioactive waste, Peter and Homer gained superpowers and continued fighting in the sky over Springfield. But even this wasn't their limit, and at the peak moment of the fight, they went into space.
Hey, isn't it, guys? We went to summer camp together. Bye, thanks for having me.
That's what I call a close encounter.
After damaging the spaceship, the guys fell back to Earth with it. Now, they had lost their superpowers and were back on Earth, but this didn't stop them. They began the final round. After a very tough fight, Peter finally won. This story showed us how sincerity and a desire to help turned into hatred and the wish to kill each other. It's hard to say if true friendship can be destroyed over a beer brand, but it's definitely not a good reason to fight to the death. But you know what's a good reason to fight? When your friend is trying to steal your dad. In the episode Papa Has a Rollin Son, Peter's idea to get a new dad pushed Joe to take a very radical action. This whole story began when Peter, Joe, and Cleveland found out that Joe hadn't seen his father in a very long time.
Well, he's a good guy, but we just drifted apart.
This really upset Joe's friends because Father's Day was coming up. So they decided to take matters into their own hands and organized a reunion. They invited Joe's dad to his home for the holiday, but when Peter told Joe about it, things didn't go as expected.
You shouldn't have done that, Peter.
It turned out that Joe hadn't seen his dad for a reason. His dad hated handicapped people. Trying to avoid a future difficult situation, the friends decided that Peter would temporarily impersonate Joe. Joe's dad arrived the next day. He was surprised by how his son looked, but the plan worked, and he believed it. Has he ever even seen his son? Peter started spending time with Mr. Swanson, pretending to be his son. They went to dinner, rode in a police car, and even played baseball. But things went terribly wrong when Peter, inspired by his good relationship with his new father, made a bad decision.
I told him he can move in with me and Bonnie.
What?
Peter tried to explain his betrayal, saying he had never had a normal father, and this was his chance. But Joe was furious about this idea.
Peter, I've had enough of this. You can't just take my dad.
Peter's response was a suggestion for Joe to go himself and confess to his father that he was handicapped. Joe couldn't bring himself to do it, so they continued the fraud. The next time they all met in the yard, Mr. Swanson was upset by Joe's appearance, who was pretending to be Peter Griffin. So he told his fake son to move him out of sight.
Joe, go over there and tell him to get back in his house.
When Peter asked Joe to go back inside, he rejected the request. Then Peter tried to force him, but it became the last straw for Joe.
Oh, yes, you are.
Get away from me, you son of a bitch!
What the hell?
After his father told him to attack, Peter went after Joe. But the angry Joe did not become an easy victim and began to beat Peter. Only the father's interruptions saved Peter.
What are you doing? You're my son. You can't let yourself get beat up by a guy in a wheelchair.
Your son is a guy in a wheelchair.
This moment of truth marked the end of the fight, the lie, and the problems in Joe's relationship with his dad. But somehow, it didn't end the friendship between Peter and Joe. In this episode, Peter and Joe's friendship faces tough challenges when they try to deceive Joe's father. Their struggles reflect the difficulties in family relationships, where talking and understanding each other is key. It shows that outsiders better not interfere in family matters. But in the next episode, believe it or not, Joe's walking on air, Joe went even further and got into a devastating fight not only with Peter, but with all his friends. This time, it all started at a party when everyone was dancing in pairs, except for Joe and Bonnie, who were left behind.
God, I hate being handicapped.
The moment made Joe very sad, and he decided he didn't want to be a burden to her anymore. So he chose to get a leg transplant so he could walk again. Wait, that was possible? Then what the heck was he waiting for all this time? The transplant went very well, and he walked out of the surgery room on his own legs.
I give you the new Joe Swanson.
Now Joe was inspired to start a new life and catch up on everything he had missed. He was going to use his legs to the fullest, so he started doing many different activities and invited his friends to join him. Peter, Cleveland, and Quagmire agreed to support him.
You can count on us, Joe.
At first, they went climbing on a cliff.
Come on, ladies, kick your high heels off and get moving. You guys are a disgrace.
Peter, this doesn't seem safe.
Yeah, I'm afraid I might.
After that, Joe and his friends started training in martial arts.
Down a notch.
No mercy!
And later, they tried to put together a group dance.
The milkman's on his way, it's too late to say goodnight.
So say good morning!
Good morning! Son Beans was his father.
Good morning to you.
Nothing could be grander than to be in Louisiana.
Peter, Quagmire, and Cleveland got tired and didn't want to join Joe's activities anymore. But their complaints didn't affect Joe because he wasn't enjoying their company anymore either.
The only reason I hung out with you guys is that I was crippled and you were lazy.
Joe already found a bunch of new friends to replace them. He was going to start a completely new lifestyle full of motion and adventure.
Come on, dudes, let's go exercise!
Exercise!
Yeah!
This turn of events greatly upset Peter and the others. Disappointed, they didn't like that Joe had become a douchebag. Unable to replace him, they made a risky decision.
Boys, there's only one answer. We gotta re-cripple Joe.
Guys, how are you going to hang out with Joe from prison after that? Altogether, the boys decided to ambush Joe at his home and broke his body. But Joe turned out to be a much harder target than they thought. Joe beat them up, but then Bonnie interrupted. She shot him to make him the way he was again. I don't know what's worse, being handicapped or having friends and family like this. In this episode, Joe gets a leg transplant and almost starts a new life full of adventure, leaving his old friends behind. But as we saw, making such changes without proper communication can lead to new problems. Sometimes it's not about changing yourself, it's about finding the right people who accept you for who you are. But to accept who you are, you first have to find yourself. And in the episode Saturday Night, Peter's search led him to the most hilarious confrontation of all. This story began when Peter realized he was stuck at his job and needed to take action to change the situation. His wife Lois was the one who came up with the idea.
Invite Mr. Weed over for dinner and show him what you have to offer the company.
Mr. Weed accepted the invitation and everything went well until an accident happened.
He's dead.
Looks like the Griffins have an extra dessert. After Mr. Weed's death, the factory closed down. Now, Peter was forced to find a new job. But his search for an acceptable job was interrupted by Lois, who decided to encourage her husband.
I say this is the perfect time for you to pursue that dream.
Inspired, Peter began training as a Renaissance Fair knight. What? He was chasing his dream job but didn't fully realize that the final exam was a fight against the Black Knight of the fair. And things got even worse for Peter when he had an accident involving the knight's girlfriend. They only had a small talk, but the Black Knight accused him of courtship.
And I don't like you hanging around my girl. I don't ever want to see you here again.
Now, Peter had a personal enemy. Such a level of danger made Peter give up on becoming a fair knight. His knight career lasted about as long as his gym membership. He decided not to make things worse and went to the fair just as a visitor. But the Black Knight spotted him in the crowd.
And what are you doing here, Griffin? I thought I told you never to show your face here again.
The Black Knight kicked him out of the fair, but this time Peter decided to confront his enemy and fulfill his childhood dream. When the battle began, Peter realized it was a bad idea, but it was too late to back out.
Oh my god, I'm gonna die!
But luck was on his side, and accidentally, Peter won this battle.
I won!
Peter's journey from a stuck job to chasing his dream as a Renaissance Fair knight ended with an unexpected victory over the Black Knight. However, jumping into a fight without thinking it through usually doesn't end as lucky. Following your dreams is great, but it's best to think things through before taking on an unexpected challenge. But no challenge ever scared Peter, and in our next episode, Long John Peter, things got even crazier as he started a pirate fight on the streets of Quahog. This episode began at the veterinary clinic, where the family went to check on Brian's health. While waiting for results, Peter started an argument with Meg, but suddenly, someone's parrot interrupted.
That's final.
Meg, that's final. Meg, that's final.
See, this bird knows what I'm talking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very polite.
You're very polite.
You do not see that these days. You do not see that. I like you.
I like you.
Peter was so excited by the talking bird that he decided to steal it. Peter finally found someone who shares his intelligence. Peter was very happy with his new friend, so he started to take it with him everywhere. When he brought it to the bar, his friends also were excited. They started joking and commenting.
Hey, Peter, you kind of look like a pirate with that thing on your shoulder.
A pirate? Ah, cool!
Looks like a lot of people were waiting to become pirates. Now, still pretending to be real pirates, Peter and his crew set out for a robbery. Their target became Goldman's Pharmacy. They robbed Mort and even destroyed the building with a cannon. Is the police out of town today? Satisfied with the result, Peter continued the pirate attacks. His next victim became a British salesman. Their confrontation started with a car chase, but then they clashed in close combat.
Prepare to be boarded!
Shortly after, Peter and the British salesman started a cannon fight. I didn't know Mini Coopers came with cannons. After destroying the car's roof, Peter and his crew successfully robbed the British salesman.
All clear, sir.
The unfortunate victim of Peter's piracy took one more cannon shot, lost control, and fell off the cliff. Peter's pirate adventure started with a parrot and ended with total chaos across Quahog. Dressing up as a pirate and committing crimes would get you arrested, not celebrated. What else could get you arrested? A public beating of a football referee, just like what happened in the episode Boopa-dee Bappa-dee. This story began with an argument between Lois and Peter about how the family should spend their free time.
We never go anywhere anymore.
Lois insisted on spending more active time and taking a new trip somewhere, but Peter was firmly against it, arguing that staying home and watching TV was the best way to spend time.
But it's not just about you, Peter. Think about the family. It would be an amazing experience for the kids. It would give them some culture.
Cornered, Peter had to defend his decision to stay home, so he set out to show his family the true culture of Quahog. At first, they visited the Quahog Museum of Science.
This is the Quahog Museum of Science.
Peter was definitely the last person this museum expected.
No.
But the second stop on their journey was even stranger. He took his family to a stadium parking lot to show them a moment of local culture.
Now, one thing that makes us more cultured than our European counterparts is high school football.
Then why are we standing here in the parking lot?
Peter explained his intentions to his family. He was going to beat up the referee because that's what you're supposed to do when your team loses. Is this just a Quahog thing, or does the NFL have this too? When today's referee showed up in the parking lot, Peter attacked him.
What part of Eatonville you from, huh? What part of Eatonville you from?
Oh, West Eatonville.
Oh, really? West Eatonville? Do you know Bob Hanley?
I'm Bob Hanley.
No kidding. Bob, it's me, Peter Griffin.
Oh my God, how the hell are you?
But it turned out that this referee was his old friend. They grew up in the same neighborhood. However, this didn't save him from a harsh beating, and Peter went even further by calling Chris to join him.
Hey, Chris, get over here. You gotta meet my buddy, Bob Hanley.
Hi, Mr. Hanley.
Now, Chris took Peter's place and continued beating the referee until they were satisfied with the result. Attacking a referee just because your team lost is a terrible idea. Maybe just pick a different team to root for. But Peter doesn't always come out on top in fights. In the episode Peter's Sister, he picked up the wrong one, which led to his most humiliating beating ever. This story began when Peter received a letter from his sister, Karen.
What? You've got a sister, Dad? How come we've never met her?
Peter refused to talk about her, yet he could no longer keep it a secret because she was coming for Thanksgiving. Lois and the children eagerly awaited Karen's arrival, and she showed up right in the middle of the holiday. But Peter wasn't happy at all because she started to bully him.
Hey. It's sort of clever.
I would like to forget about a sister like that too. When the dinner began, it turned out that Karen was a professional wrestler, and everyone was delighted by her personality and stories. But for Peter, the situation only got worse.
She terrorized me my whole childhood. Now she's got to embarrass me in front of my friends?
As Peter feared, Karen told embarrassing stories about his childhood, took his place at dinner, and even showed off her wrestling moves on him. I bet Quagmire would pay money to take Peter's place. This whole situation had a big impact on Meg because she herself often suffered from bullying and understood how her father felt. After everything she had seen, Meg started to feel sorry for her father. She decided to help him overcome his main bully.
You need to confront Karen.
Oh no, I can't do that. I tried for years to stand up to her. Nothing ever worked.
But Meg kept insisting, and her words finally inspired Peter. He decided to stop Karen.
I am gonna become a lady wrestler and defeat Heavy Flo in the ring.
You're an imbecile.
Desperate for revenge, Peter put up a costume and stormed into Karen's show to challenge her. Somewhere, Joe Rogan is already recording a podcast about this. Karen accepted the challenge, but from the very beginning, the fight didn't go as Peter expected. Peter was nearly destroyed in the ring, but then Meg interrupted and saved the day.
1, 2, 3!
This time, Peter faced his childhood bully, only to realize that even as an adult, he still couldn't win. His decision to step into a direct confrontation wouldn't just lead to embarrassment, it could cause serious trauma. Sometimes the best way to deal with a bully isn't to fight them in the ring, it's to never invite them to your home. But we're inviting you to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.